Hey, what's up, guys? Back again with another video on the Breaking Through Code channel, and today we've got a box to we've got a box of another Road to Glory for learning C#. Okay, please like, comment, and subscribe so I can keep this Road to Glory going. Okay, so just a recap of what we covered in the last video, quick one. We looked into comments in C#. I explained to you the 3 ways of commenting. I then showed you how to do it. Okay, so obviously single line, multi-line, and XML comments. How to do that in the editor of your choice. Okay, and then I gave you scenarios when you should and shouldn't comment in your code. So go check that video out. It was a great video. Trust me. Okay. Today we are going to be covering or exploring nullable types in C#. Okay, now we touched on this topic in an earlier tutorial when we looked at C# types in general. Remember, there are 2 categories. There's value types, okay, and reference types, okay. And value types, obviously, examples of that are int, float, double, struct, enum. Reference types, you've got classes and interfaces as examples, and many other reference types. Okay, in terms of value types, they cannot be assigned the value null. Okay, so if I assigned int I, if I assigned null to the value type int I, okay, I'd get a compiler warning. So nullable types obviously were introduced by introduced into C# version 2, I believe, to allow us to assign nulls to value types like these, for example. Okay, so you can declare nullable types using the nullable of T, where T is the type. In this case, it's an int that's the type. Okay, and you declare it and assign to it like that. Okay. Ooh, went fast there. Okay, so the nullable int will represent, a range of values, the range of values that originally did. So these are the values that you can assign to an int anyway. So it will represent that, but it will also represent an additional value as well, of that being null. Okay. There is an easier way to, or an easier alternative of declaring a null value type, okay, and that's by using the question mark sign. So I can also declare that as well, and that equates to this, basically the same thing. Okay, so let's hop over to Visual Studio and see this in action. Okay, cool. So first, let's try reference type and declare a null reference type. Okay, so the string class can be written like a reference. Well, the string class is a reference type, obviously, and we can write it like this: string email equals null. Okay, and we can do that, and the compiler isn't going to shout at us. Nothing's going to happen, because that's absolutely fine. Reference types can be null. Okay, but if I try to do the exact same thing with a value type, so if I said decimal bank balance equals null, okay, immediately the compiler's not going to be happy with that. It's going to get mad at us. So to make this a value type, okay, if we hover over that, it will actually tell us what's wrong. Cannot convert null to decimal because it's a non-nullable value type. Okay, so that's made it very clear what the issue is. So to make this a nullable type, we can either go with this. So we can either say nullable T, where we write decimal in there. Decimal. Oh, if I could spell decimal. Oh, it's actually done. I'll pretty much use the IntelliSense, but we'll get rid of that, and we'll pop that in there, actually. So let's pop that in there. And as you can see there, the compiler is absolutely fine with that. Okay, it doesn't complain about that because that's absolutely acceptable. Okay, or we could go with the easier format. So let's try the easier format and just get rid of this here and that here. So the compiler is now unhappy again. And then if we just pop a question mark there, as I showed you earlier, it's now happy again and it works fine. Now, I think I'm a mind reader, okay? And you're probably thinking, why would we want to make our value types null anyway, okay? So if we wanted to reference nothing for our bank balance, we could use the value 0. So obviously that could just reference nothing as well. If we just put 0, that means you haven't got anything in your bank either. So that does pretty much the same thing. And yes, you have a point, but let me give you another example that might help you understand why we would want nullable value types, okay? So for example, if our manager comes to us and says, hey, programmer guy, make me an app that asks people if they're hungry and if they're thirsty, okay? But the app has to get an answer for whether they're hungry, but hey, we don't really care if they're thirsty, so they don't have to give an answer for that, okay? It's a weird app, right? But hey, it could happen. Okay, so cool. So let's declare a variable. Let's clean this up and declare a value, a Boolean variable actually. So we'll call it bool is hungry, and we would store whatever answer that the user put into the app. So since they have to provide a value, it would either be one of two values, either true or false. So in this case, they were hungry, so they put true. Okay, great. So now let's create another variable. Okay, to ask the other question, bool is thirsty. Okay, so now the user doesn't have to answer this question. Okay, so what do we assign to this value here, this value type here? Because true would indicate that they did respond and that they were thirsty, so we can't assign true. Okay, okay, cool. So what about false? Well, if we assigned false, that would indicate that they didn't select anything because sorry, that would indicate that they responded and they weren't thirsty. Okay, so that wouldn't work either. So what can we use to represent that they didn't select anything? Okay, and they didn't have an answer to the is thirsty question. Okay, with the bool we can't do that because we only have two options of true or false. Okay, but if we convert this to a nullable bool, yeah, by putting the question mark, then we can also specify null. Okay, and we can represent that no value was entered for that question with null. Okay, and if we want to also represent this in a like an if statement format, so that we actually print a response to the user. Okay, so we can say, and again I'm going to go through the if statements the conditional statements in more detail as well if you don't know how to use it, but in future tutorials. Okay, but let's say we've got if I'm making a mess of this, can't type today. If is the thirsty equals true. Okay, that's the first option. Okay, then we want to print to the console CW. It's a shortcut for console.writeLine. User is thirsty. I can't spell thirsty. Thirsty. Cool. Okay, and then now with the nullable type, I can also access the value of the variable like this. Okay, so let me show you another cool way to access the value of the variable. Else if is thirsty, I'm not going to use IntelliSense there, well, not to its full capacity anyway, is thirsty dot value, okay, not equals true. Okay, so if it's not equals true, then it will obviously be false then in that scenario, I guess. Then we could console.write line user is not thirsty. Cool. Okay, but this also equates to this as well. Okay, equals equals false. So that's just another way of accessing representing that, which is the same thing as what we just had before. Okay, and then finally we have an else scenario. Okay, another else scenario, and in this scenario we can say console.write line, nice of the IntelliSense to do that for you. User did not specify if they were thirsty or not. Cool. Okay, so let's end that there. Cool. So now, now based on our variable being this, this is our variable, so it's a nullable type is thirsty and it equals null. What message do you think we're going to get? Do you think we're going to get this one here, the user is thirsty? Do you think we're going to get user is not thirsty, or do you think we're going to get this one? Okay, so let's run that. And if you said the last one, you are correct. The user did not specify if they were thirsty or not because this variable is null. Okay. Okay, so now let me give you further context on the null coalescing operator. Okay, now we introduced this, and just so you know what that is, that's the double question mark. Okay, we introduced this in an earlier tutorial as the double question mark. Okay, so this returns the left hand operand if the value is not null, else it will return the right hand operand. Okay, so let's show you this in action. So if we have something like this, bool user is thirsty equals is thirsty. Okay, and then we use the null coalescing operator there, and then we put true. Okay, and let me just put a comment here. Null coalescing operator. I hope I spelled that correctly. I'm sure I did. Okay, so yeah, so I did. Yeah, so basically, as you can see on the left operand, so this is called the left operand. Okay, and this is called the right operand. Okay, so if in this scenario, what this is basically saying is that if this is null, yeah, but well, basically we're declaring this variable, just to be clear, and we're trying to assign it to whatever is going on here. And whatever's going on here is basically, if this is null, then we assign true to the variable. Else, if this has a value of, in this case, true or false, we assign this value. So we don't even bother with this. Okay, that's basically what that's basically saying. So let's try and print that out. So let's get rid of all this here. Okay, and let's do a CW and print out user is thirsty. And if you're, because this is null, okay, it's going to print this out true. Okay, so let's run that, and as you can see, it's true. Cool. So now I want to show you something else that you may have missed. Okay, I can assign, I can't assign is thirsty to user is thirsty. So if I try and do something like this, so let's get rid of all this, and I try and do this, in case you missed that, and do this, okay, the compiler complains, and isn't happy with me. Okay, and the reason for that is it says here cannot implicitly convert type bool with the question mark, so nullable bool to bool. An explicit conversion exists. Okay, are you missing the cast? Okay, so we can't do that because one type is a nullable type and then the other type is a value type, and the compiler doesn't like that. Okay, so a way around that was to use the null coalescing operator to say, okay, well, if this is null, a nullable type, and it's null, okay, then we can just stick a true in there. You know, if this doesn't have a value in it, then we can stick a true in there, and that works fine. Okay, and another way we can do it, get around this, is by using a cast. Okay, as it mentioned earlier. Okay, now I'm going to go through cast with you in another video. Okay, into more detail, but for now we can just go cast this nullable bool back into a bool. Okay, and if we do that, that will now cast whatever this this back into as a boolean type into user is thirsty. But if we run that, I know that's going to be an issue because this is a nullable, this is null, so it's going to throw an exception, a system invalid operation exception, because nullable object must have a value. Okay, so we actually need to give it a value. So a better example for that would have been if I type true there, okay, and I run that, so that has a valid value that it can accept. Oh, I'm not printing it anywhere, so let's print it out to the console. Okay, user is thirsty, and if I run that, you get a true. Okay, now you also saw something else that you're probably not familiar with, which is exceptions. Okay, so again, don't worry about that now. We'll cover that in another tutorial. But if you are worried about it, then you know what I always say, you know where Google is, go and find out, and get ahead of the crowd and ahead of everybody else. Okay, so that's it for this video, guys. If you liked it, please smash the like button. If you learned something from it, please comment below, and if you want to learn more, please subscribe. See you in the next video, guys. Thank you very much.